Hi, you're watching Floyd Steinberg's YouTube channel. Today I'm going to talk a bit about the Yamaha SY99 as a synthesizer. And if you don't know what the Yamaha SY99 is, who could explain it better than this gentleman?
Hello, gorgeous. The year is 1989 and things are not looking good for Yamaha. For half a decade, they stood as the unchallenged champions of the digital synthesizer age from 1983 to 1987 when Roland came out with the D50. The Roland D50 was a game changer not only because it used samples to be able to get more realistic sounds than a DX7 could, but also it had a full effect section of chorus and echoes and reverbs, so the sound sounded completely polished when it left the synthesizer without any additional processing. The next year, 1988, things got even worse for Yamaha when Korg released one of the best-selling synthesizers of all time, the M1. The M1 was developed concurrently with the Roland D50, but expanded the sample content to 4 megabytes, which was huge at the time, and it also had a much more fully featured effects section and is the first true workstation synthesizer ever. Meanwhile, Yamaha's DX7 Mark II, released in 1986, was starting to look pretty bland. It had no effects, it had no samples, it was 6-operator FM just like in 1983. So in the rapidly evolving digital synthesizer market that Yamaha created, they themselves were starting to become dinosaurs. Finally, in 1989, Yamaha released the SY77. Not only was it too little too late in terms of sample size, as it had the same 4 megabytes as the Korg M1, but it was also too much too late, costing $3,000 when an M1 or a D50 cost about $2,000. Another fatal flaw was the implementation of the effects was such that it could cause phasing issues if you mixed in the effects at about 50%. So the SY77, which was an incredible synthesizer at the time, never really took off the way the M1 or the D50 did. Yamaha knew they had to address this issue, and so they released the SY99 in 1991. The SY99 added even more sample memory as well as fixing the effects issue, which is now based off the SPX 900 versus the SPX 50 effects units from Yamaha. But what really sets apart the SY range as a whole is the ability to use samples as operators in FM synthesis. Perhaps because of the sting of the lack of sales of the SY99's $4,000 price tag, Yamaha did not return to advanced FM this deep for 25 years. It was not until 2016 with the Montage did we finally have full 6-operator FM with variable wave shapes and the ability to use waves as operators. So I think it's pretty amazing that the SY99 is the last flagship synthesizer from Yamaha that was fully featured 6-operator advanced FM. I'm Vulture Culture. Come check out my channel if you like vintage synthesizers. Continue to be excellent and take it away, Floyd.
Thank you very much, Vulture Culture. I highly recommend visiting his channel after this video for more insights on synthesizer tech and history. As you've heard, the SY99 has some unique tricks up its sleeve, and I want to show you some of them today. This synth has a hybrid engine made up from an FM part that expands on the ideas found in the DX7 and an, at the time, luxurious subtractive synthesizer working with multi-sample sounds. This means each instrument has multiple recordings assigned to parts of the piano keyboard and velocity, so playing a soft deep note will trigger a different sample than hitting a mid-range note very hard. Let's take a look at the user interface. On the left, we find a pitch bend and 2 mod wheels. There's also a floppy drive there that I've replaced with a USB port. Next, we have the volume sliders, mode selector and the sequencer interface. We'll stay in voice mode today and not use the sequencer. There are also 2 card slots here used for adding patches and samples, and we won't use those either. Continuing right, we find a nice big LC display. I've replaced the original one, which was broken, and under the display there are 8 function buttons and a shift and exit key. We'll use these a lot and go into this later. The next section is used for data entry. You can use the jog wheel or the data entry slider for fast number entry and the number pad for more precise specifications. There's also a page selector there. Every menu on the SY99 has a page number, and you'll remember them once you start working with the synth more often. So that's a relatively quick way to navigate around the user interface. Rightmost, we have the patch and bank selection panel, which in editor mode can be used to select the operator or sample voice you're working on, or turn individual operators or sample voices on or off. We'll use that feature a lot as well. Right, let's start by initializing a patch. Select the patch from the internal bank on the number block and then press Edit. Now move the cursor to the initialize command and press Enter. You'll have to repeat this on every screen to get a fully initialized sound, so press F1 to F4 and repeat that command on all of the 4 screens. Next, we want to choose a voice mode. Up to 4 oscillators can be used in one patch, and each of them can either be sample-based or FM. I'll use option 9 here, 1 FM and 1 AWM oscillator. Now let's name this patch. Press F2 to go to the common screen and choose option 13 to enter a name. Press exit twice and choose store. We now have a patch made up from a sample sine wave and a frequency modulated one. Let's edit the FM voice. On the screen you can see 2 tabs for both the voice oscillators are displayed. E1 is the FM oscillator and E2 is the sampled one. Press E1. I'm going to create a choir-like patch that will make use of some of the more unique features here. First, select an algorithm. Choose option 1, then press ALG. I'm looking for an algorithm where one operator is modulated by 3 other operators. In FM terms, oscillators that create sound are called carriers, and oscillators that modify sounds are called modulators. Algorithms are the rules by which the operators can interact with each other. There are 45 algorithms available here, and if you really need it, you can also define your own algorithms using an external editor on your PC. Now press exit until you're back on the main screen. Select the oscillator screen. We can set up the operator here, and on the right panel you can select the operator you're working on or mute individual operators. On this screen you can assign one of the 16 waveforms operators can have on the SY99. They sound like this. For operator 1, I'll use the standard sine wave though. I'll use a fixed frequency setting on operator 2 and change its wave shape to number 2 as well. I'll reduce the frequency here to around 0.3 Hz, which will give this sound a slowly moving transformation, which will sound gorgeous. But before we can hear that, we need to set up the levels of all the operators, so press exit and select the output menu. You can now hear the fixed frequency operator slowly pulsing, giving this sound a very nice edge. Let's repeat this for the other 3 operators. Return to the operator page and give operator 5 a fixed frequency of around 0.06 Hz and waveform 3. I'll also detune operator 4 slightly, which is the carrier here, so overall we get a fuller sound. Next, I'll adjust the envelopes. An envelope is a graph that determines the volume of a voice over time. On the SY99, each operator can have its own envelope. The editor screen for envelopes is divided into a rate and a level screen, which can be a bit confusing at first. I want the operators to have a fast but not instantaneous attack and a long release. Giving all operators slightly different attack times will give your sound an interesting, evolving start. Here's the result. Now let's edit the AWM or sample-based voice. On the main screen, press E2, then mute the FM voice using the block of buttons on the right side of the keyboard. At the moment, we hear a triangle wave here. Select the Wave Set option in the main menu and press F1 to select the first bank of built-in samples. We'll use preset 46 pad here, but let's browse some of the internal samples while we're here. Right, let's give this sound an amplitude envelope. Interestingly, on AWM voices, the envelope screen isn't split into a rate and a volume section. I'll give this sound a more percussive envelope than its FM counterpart. Back in the main menu, we can use the sensitivity option to adjust velocity sensitivity. A value of 3 seems to sit well here. Playing softer makes the sound more subdued, and we're going to use this to good effect later. Let's add a dynamic filter. There's a resonant low-pass and high-pass filter here that can be applied to both FM and AWM voices individually. I'll tone it down subtly and add velocity sensitivity to arrive at this sound. Filters, of course, can have their own envelopes, and after some adjustments, we're here. Let's turn back on the FM voice. Here's what we've got so far. The FM voice is a bit too loud, overpowering the AWM voice. On the common screen, there's a mixer we can use to adjust the levels. But now, let's take a look at the feature that made the SY99 unique for almost 3 decades until the montage workstation came along. Return to the FM voice editor and select the algorithm option. Then press the external tab or F2. Here, you can inject noise and samples into your FM operators. Let's begin by injecting some noise into one of a fixed frequency operators or operator 4. Operator 2 gets a healthy dose of a sampled voice here. By the way, you can also load your own samples into the SY99. These have to be in the TX16 format, and the only program that can convert WAV files into this format is called A-Wave. Link is in this video's description. Last but not least, let's add some effects. The SY99 has 2 effect slots you can align serial or in parallel. These effects still sound surprisingly good today. I'll use a stereo delay and a hall reverb here to add some space. One last nice touch is you can add a random pitch shift to your patch, slightly detuning all the notes you play for that vintage analog impression. A value of 3 seems to sound nice with my patch here. Okay, I'll record a short pattern using the step sequencer to do a short demo, and then let's wrap up this video. If there are any questions left or features you feel I should talk about, please post a comment. Yeah, and that's it for today. The Yamaha SY99, a synthesizer that combined Yamaha's FM technology with sample-based subtractive synthesis. Thanks again to Vulture for the introduction to this video. If you're interested in the history of synthesizers and technical backgrounds, I really recommend you to check out his channel. Link is in this video's description. And as always, thanks for watching, and see you again very, very soon. Bye bye.